We are in fall mode, y'all. I have a fall blend in the diffuser. I have Virgin River on in the back. We're going to be talking about some books that I think would be great to read during the fall season. Also, I think that Virgin River is such a good show to watch during the fall time. So if you're looking for just like a cozy, warm, lighthearted show to watch during this time of year and you have not seen Virgin River, I would highly recommend it. It is for sure one of my comfort shows. But anyway, let's get into the video. Hi, and welcome to another video. My name is Crystal if you are new to watching. I post all book content here on my YouTube channel. Book hauls, book reviews, reading vlogs, book recommendations, all of the things. So if you are a big reader and you love books as much as I do, I would love it if you would subscribe. Today, I'm going to be talking about some books that I have read and loved that I think would be really good to read during the fall season, during this time of year, September, October, November. I'm like looking at all the books right now. I have a good amount of genres, but most of these are darker or cozier types of reads. I have a little bit of dark romance. I have some thrillers. I have some fantasy. I have some dark academia. One of the genres that I don't really have a lot of is rom-com. And that's just because I'm not really a big rom-com girl. I don't read a lot of rom-com books. So we have a lot of books to talk about. Let's get into it. We are starting off strong with this series right here. That is none other than Harry Potter, of course. If someone were to come up to me and be like, what do I read this fall? I would absolutely, this is the first thing I would say. Have you read Harry Potter? This series is like the ultimate fall series. If you are just looking for something cozy, easy to read, but it's still like the writing is amazing. There's so much going on. There's so much action and adventure. There's magic. There's relationships, friendships. The setting in this series is absolutely everything. Harry Potter is just a part of my soul, and there is nothing that I don't love about it. And I know this series may look very intimidating because there are a lot of books, and these books are not thin books. They're thick. But I promise you, they are so fast. They are really, really fast reads. They're easy to read. Writing just flows so well. And I don't think I said this, but this is young adult fantasy. But like I was saying, the setting in this series just screams fall. It is an academic type of setting. So I'm gonna put a picture of Hogwarts up on the screen here, just so you can get an idea if you don't know what it is. But the school setting is just, it screams fall. It is dark, it's full of candlelight, it is warm, it is cozy. It is just everything that I would want in a setting. Like if I could live in any book's setting, it would be Hogwarts. It would be Harry Potter. This also takes place during the school year. So it takes place in the fall and the winter. It's rainy, it's dark, it's cloudy, it's cold. It's just the best setting in any series I've ever read. I love it so much. If you have not read Harry Potter, now is the time. It is just so, so good. Even if you are not into fantasy, I really think that literally anyone would enjoy this series. It is just so, so good. Okay, and then sticking with young adult fantasy series, I can't not talk about Twilight. Okay, this is another series that's like the epitome of fall. This series is about vampires, and it has a big plot of romance as well. So I would consider this like young adult romantasy. I would say that this is one of my comfort series along with Harry Potter, of course, but the setting of this is like dark and rainy and foggy. If you think of like the weather in the Pacific Northwest, that is what this is. And I feel like the fall time is just the perfect time to read the Twilight series simply because of the dark and dreary setting. There's just something about vampires and werewolves and rainy, gloomy weather that just screams fall in my eyes. Okay, and then still sticking with young adult series, this is another one I want to talk about. This is the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. This I would consider like young adult mystery. This is one of my absolute favorite series ever. The thing that I can compare this series to is kind of like a true crime podcast. So this is about Pip, who is in high school, and she is kind of investigating a murder that happens in her town for a school project. And essentially that's what this series is about. It's about her digging into the case. She's questioning like friends and family and people in the community, and so many things start coming out. This is the perfect series if you are someone who likes mystery but you don't want something too dark, and it is young adult, so it's not super graphic or disturbing or anything like that. So if you are someone who likes mysteries but you don't want something that's super dark or graphic, I'm telling you, please read this series. You will absolutely love it. Okay, the next two books I want to talk about is a little duology. This is The Housemaid and The Housemaid's Secret. The Housemaid is the first book, and then The Housemaid's Secret is the sequel. If you are looking for some really good thrillers to read this fall season, this right here. These are some of my favorite thrillers ever. They are fast-paced, they are easy to read. There are so many twists, so many turns. It is mysterious, it is thrilling. Storylines are so good, the writing is so good. I have nothing but good things to say about this little duology. But this little duology is about Millie, who basically gets hired to be a housemaid for a very well-off family. And she's like a live-in nanny, so she takes care of a lot of the errands, the housework. Some creepy things kind of start happening when she's doing her like daily chores around the house. There are some really strange things that begin happening, and she starts questioning everything. I enjoyed both of these very, very much. I gave The Housemaid 5 stars and I gave The Housemaid's Secret 4.5 stars. If you're looking for a really good thriller to read this fall season, I would absolutely recommend these two. Okay, and I'm just gonna stick with my thrillers since I'm already talking about them. I have 3 more that I wanna talk about. Next one is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I actually recently read this book back in August and I absolutely loved it. This is basically a serial killer thriller. This book is about Chloe, who her dad is actually convicted of murdering, I believe it was 6 girls back when she was young. And so now you jump forward to present day where there are some murders happening, some girls going missing that resemble the murders that took place when she was a child. And so she starts digging into the mystery, and that's when everything kind of starts unfolding. There's also a twist in this that I was not expecting. But I am someone, when I read thrillers, I'm not trying to figure out the plot twist as I'm reading because I feel like that just distracts me from the story. So I just enjoy the ride as I'm reading thrillers. I just read, and as the plot twists come, I'm just like soaking it all in. So I'm someone who's always surprised by plot twists. But nonetheless, I absolutely love this. I devoured it. I thought it was so, so good. Okay, this next one, this is for those of you who like dark, disturbing shit. This is gonna be your best friend. This is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. This is something that I always recommend. If someone asks me like, what's a really good like dark thriller? This one right here is always the one that I will recommend. I will say though, this is disturbing, it is graphic, it is very, very dark. So I always preface that when I'm recommending this book, like just wanna let you know, this is graphic and it's disturbing and it's fucked up and it's twisted. If that's your thing, then you're absolutely gonna love this. I read this years and years ago, and it's still one that I will always recommend. But basically, this is about 2 sisters who are estranged. One of the sisters, her wife, gets murdered, and this happens like right at the beginning of the book, and it's also on the back, so that is not a spoiler. And right around the same time, a teenage girl goes missing, and this book is basically about the unraveling of it all. The sisters kind of come back together and start putting some pieces together and figuring out how these 2 events connect, and they start finding out about all these family secrets while they are diving into the mystery. It is twisted. I mean, you're going down all these different little rabbit holes while you're reading this, and you're like, and it's just one of those books where you're like, oh my God, what is gonna happen? Like you finish the chapter and you're like, I gotta read the next one. I gotta read the next one. It's like one of those kind of books. It is so addicting and wild. If you like dark psychological thrillers, this is a absolute must read. Okay, this is the last thriller I wanna talk about. This is His and Hers by Alice Feeney. This is a roller coaster of a book with a huge twist at the end that completely got me, and my jaw was on the floor when I found out what the twist was because I didn't see it coming at all. But I feel like that's Alice Feeney. She is like the queen of twists. So basically a woman is murdered in their town. There is a reporter who is one of the main characters in this book who is reluctant to cover the case for reasons I won't go into because I don't want to spoil anything. And the main detective on the case is very suspicious of her involvement. But then as the story kind of goes on, he becomes a suspect. This is told in dual point of view, so you get the detective's perspective and you get the reporter's perspective as well, which I love a dual POV, especially in a thriller because you get to see both sides of the investigation in the case. This is also one of those books that would be a really good TV series or movie. Like I would eat it up. The next one I want to talk about is another fantasy book, and that is none other than Fourth Wing, of course. Even if you are not a fantasy person, even if you don't read fantasy, I'm telling you, this is still a must read. Or if you're someone who's wanting to get into fantasy, I think this is a really good one to read as well. The writing is really easy to understand. There is some world building at the beginning of the book, but after you get through the first little chunk of world building, it is just like, it flows so easily and so seamlessly. Basically, this book is about Violet, who is going into this war college. And the war college is made up of different quadrants. She wants to go to the scribe quadrant where she is working with books and history and writing, but her mom, who is basically like the general of the school, is forcing her to enter the writer's quadrant because it is the most elite and she wants her daughter to be in the elite part of the school. They have to go through all of these like trials and tribulations, these physical challenges in order to make it through the writer's quadrant. And then one of the main goals is to bond with a dragon and ultimately to become a dragon writer. So this book is about her journey through the whole process, and it is just incredible. The characters are amazing, the storyline is amazing, the atmosphere, the plot, the action, literally every single thing. There's a little bit of spice in this as well. The spice is so good. And the reason why I think this would be good to read during the fall time is not only because it's fantasy. I feel like fantasy is like the perfect genre to read during the fall and winter. The setting of this also just kind of gives me fall vibes because it has a very academia type of setting. They're in a war college and they're going to school. Anything with a school setting during the school year just reminds me of the fall time. So it also does have like kind of like a little bit of a dark, cozy vibe as well. The school that they actually go to reminds me a little bit of Hogwarts, just on a smaller scale. But the second book is coming out in November and I will be devouring it the second that I get it in my hands. All right, the next book I want to talk about is If We Were Villains by ML Rio. This is dark academia mixed with mystery. This is a book I actually recently read in my book club in August, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. I really loved this. Now, this book is very different, though, I will say. It is very, very different and unique. This is basically about a group of theater students who are obsessed with Shakespeare. So I will say this book does have a very heavy Shakespeare theme, and I'm someone who's not into Shakespeare. I don't know anything about it. It goes way over my head. So I did find myself a little bit skimming over the Shakespeare parts, but to me, that did not take away from the story. And I ended up really, really enjoying this. I was still very invested in the storyline and the mystery that is attached to this book. Basically, one of the theater students ends up dying. And this book is about the mystery of that death unraveling. It's just a big dark mystery, and I really love the setting of this book as well. Again, it is set in a theater college, and so it's set during the school year in the fall time. There's also a scene in here that takes place on Halloween, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire book. And it was just really different and unique, and I really, really enjoyed this. So if you're someone who likes dark academia or you're wanting to kind of dabble into the genre, I would highly recommend this one. I don't think this book is for everyone, but I think if you go into this knowing that there's a lot of Shakespeare in this, and you don't necessarily need to interpret every piece of Shakespeare in this book. If you go into it knowing that, because the mystery involved in this and the actual storyline and plot outside of the Shakespeare is so, so good. Okay, the next 2 books I want to talk about are dark romance. There is just something about reading dark romance in the fall time that it just hits different. The first one I want to talk about is Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. Oh my God, y'all, this book. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I still think about it to this day. Not only is this romance, it has a very heavy theme, obviously, of romance, has a lot of spice in it, but it also has a little bit of a thriller vibe as well. Look up trigger warnings before you read this. There's actually trigger warnings at the very beginning of this book, right here. The plot of this book is about Enzo and Sawyer. They end up meeting and connecting. Enzo ends up taking Sawyer out on his boat. They end up getting in an accident on the water, and they stumble upon this really creepy lighthouse. They go into this lighthouse because they're looking for shelter and they're looking for help. And what they find in this lighthouse is something that they did not expect. But this book is creepy too. It is creepy, it is thrilling. That's why I said it kind of has like a little bit of a thriller undertone, because I was on the edge of my seat the whole time I was reading this. I was just like, what the heck is about to happen right now? Like every chapter I was like, okay. But I just absolutely loved the mix of the spicy romance with the thriller undertone. It was just like the perfect blend for me. Those are like 2 of my favorite genres, and then you mix them all together in one book, and it's just, this book was everything to me. I loved it so much. All right, the last book I'm going to be talking about is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This is a book that I just finished at the beginning of September. This is also dark romance. Wow. This book is heavy. First chunk, I would say, I can't remember the page numbers, but the first chunk of the book is really, really heavy. So read the trigger warnings on this one as well. This book is about Cora and Dean. They end up getting abducted and basically being chained up in a basement. And in this basement, Cora and Dean go through some very traumatic things while they are being held captive. And this book takes you through all those things that are happening, and then it also takes you through the aftermath of everything. Could not put this book down. It is heavily addicting. It is also spicy. Like I said, just know that the first chunk of this book is very heavy. It is very dark. It is very disturbing. It is very triggering. But it is also such a beautiful and touching story. I loved every second of it. I just think this time of year is the perfect time to read dark romance, fantasy, thrillers. It's just that time of year. Like, I love those genres all the time, but something about the fall season just makes them that much better. Also, I want to let y'all know that I will be posting a whole other video with my spooky season book recommendations. So books that I think would be perfect to read during the month of October. So those are going to be like spookier types of books. Books that are a little creepy, a little scarier, have some paranormal types of undertones. Books that I think would be perfect during the Halloween season. But just know that that is coming, and I am so excited about that video because I have so many good books that I think would be great to read during October, during Halloween, to just get you in that Halloween mode. But I hope y'all enjoyed watching. I hope y'all have an amazing fall season. I hope y'all read some really great books. Again, thank y'all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all in my next one. Bye.